Hello, everybody. I want to shout out Boardable for our next session. Boardable is at the forefront of board management software designed to empower nonprofits with tools for better efficiency, collaboration, and strategic decision making. Committed to innovation and customer satisfaction, they're here to support your mission. Check out Boardable's board management software. You can also experience a smarter way to manage your board with Boardable. So, just for Nonprofit Marketing Summit registrants, Boardable is offering a $100 gift card. Complete a qualified demo and receive a $100 gift card. See how Boardable simplifies board meetings, collaboration, and decision making for nonprofits. So, don't forget, book your demo now and secure your chance to receive that $100 gift card. All right, everybody, fasten your suspenders, fluff up those boas, and because we are about to take your marketing game from ragtime to prime time. We are here for Seal the Deal, unlock boardroom support for marketing. And Jenny Burton, the Senior Director of Marketing at Boardable. She is a marketing professional with over a decade of experience helping organizations grow and engage their audiences. As Senior Director of Marketing, she focuses on equipping nonprofits with the tools and strategies they need to succeed. With a background in corporate and tech sectors, Jenny has held roles in marketing, product strategy, and customer engagement. In addition to her professional work, she is actively involved in the nonprofit community, currently serving on 2 local Indianapolis nonprofit boards with a particular passion for addressing homelessness and housing affordability. Joining her is Julie Reagan, and she is the CEO of the Community Foundation of Boone County, where she leads a dedicated team in advancing philanthropy and maximizing community impact. With a background in marketing and a strong appreciation for technology that enhances efficiency, she is always on the lookout for tools that make nonprofit life easier, allowing her to remain committed to streamlining operations and improving donor engagement. Julie believes that the right tools can transform nonprofit work, allowing organizations to focus more on their mission and less on administrative complexities. Whether she's or when she's not leading strategic initiatives or working toward $1.5 million of matching gift opportunity, Julie enjoys spending time with her hubby and 2 teenage sons, drinking coffee and fostering strong community partnerships. So let's go ahead and welcome Julie and Jenny to the stage.
Hi, everyone. Just making sure that you can hear me. We're excited to get into this session today. Yes. So awesome. Great. Well, I am Jenny Burton. I loved the introduction and we got to learn a lot about Julie as well. So we can get through the first couple of slides of our presentation pretty quickly and really get into the meat of the presentation right away. So Julie, as was introduced, is the Chief Executive Officer at Community Foundation of Boone County, and I'm the Senior Director of Marketing at Boardable. And we've gotten the opportunity to be on a panel together before, and I was just immediately so inspired by Julie and her story. And when this topic came up, I was thinking she's the perfect person with a background in marketing that's kind of risen to that rank of the CEO of the Community Foundation of Boone County as just the perfect person to be a part of this session. So really glad that she's here and really excited to talk about this topic, specifically as somebody that's been in a marketing role for most of my career, always being able to put together the business case for getting more marketing budget really resonates with me kind of at this deep personal level of like, hey, this is going to work and I believe it's going to work and we've got to invest to grow and all of those aspects of things. So I'm really excited to get in and dive into this content. So I'll go ahead and introduce Boardable. There were several offers and I know that the NMS team has done such a good job of providing us outlets to share a little bit more about what we do. I'm going to take 10 seconds to just tell you, how this relates to this session. Ultimately, Boardable is a board management solution, and we have 4 main goals. We help organizations stay organized and efficient, seamlessly collaborate, understand the board better, and elevate professionalism. I kind of look at this when we think about, okay, now I'm going to go ask for investment and more marketing dollars for my board. I think of a lot of what this does, or a lot of what Boardable does ultimately as the baseline, right? These are really great things to have in place as you're also making those steps forward and as you're growing your marketing budget and getting more of that marketing budget as well. And so ultimately, this is a great step one, but regardless of where you are on your journey, we're going to provide you some really great actionable content, regardless of platforms that you use and how you're meeting, whether it's virtual or in person. A lot of that is pretty agnostic, to the content that we have ahead. So that's the background on Boardable. As far as like what we're going to dig into for this session, we're going to first talk about the boardroom challenge, like why marketing buy-in ultimately is difficult for a lot of nonprofits in talking to their board. We're going to talk about crafting a clear pitch, communicating that ROI and mission alignment. We'll talk about data-driven decision-making, and then ultimately engaging your board, really ultimately how to flip that switch from, okay, naysayer or potentially like not really excited about spending more money in marketing to the person that's like, let's go spend more money, let's go do more, and how can I help, right? And that's ultimately where we want to get things for your organization. So let's start with the boardroom challenge, and I'm going to engage Julie throughout the presentation. Don't worry, you'll get a break from just hearing my voice here in a minute. But let's first talk about the boardroom challenge. So what are the challenges to marketing buy-in that a lot of nonprofits feel like happen, or why are these happening in the boardroom? I'm going to start with the left side of the screen. So 1, 2, and 3. So lack of compelling narrative, right? Have we told a compelling story? I think of this as really those internal selling tools, right? Being able to sell the idea, believe in the idea, and tell a story around it. Lack of clear ROI. Have we communicated what we hope to get out of this investment? Have we in the past shown the ROI of similar investments? Those types of things. And then the gaps in marketing knowledge. So, are people understanding why you would do this, why you would invest in printing something, why would you invest in branding? Those types of things. There can be sometimes just that general lack of knowledge on the board, right? You might have somebody from a completely different sector that just really hasn't had a lot of exposure to marketing in their professional life. So those are all things that we're going to dig into and talk about. There's a few over on the right side that I feel like are a little bit more macro, right? This idea of, is it stealing from services funds, right? Like if I invest in marketing, does that mean that less people are going to get the end services of my nonprofit? Or are there potential donor concerns, right? Donors don't want those dollars to go to marketing. And then the overarching idea of, is this an expense or an investment? So I'd love, Julie, your perspective. I know that you had some interesting ways that you had kind of combated, especially on that left side, donor concerns and the steals from services fund and some of those mindsets. I'd love for you to share a little bit about how you've, educated your board and really kind of combated some of those ideas.
Yeah. So when I first started at the Community Foundation, there was not a marketing person. There had not been a marketing focus at all. And so I came in as the first director of marketing. And so that, while that was amazing, because it was a very open, just open path for us to explore whatever we felt was best, we had to overcome a lot of all of these things because it just wasn't the norm. The board didn't know marketing, right? They hadn't been part of their norm, and it hadn't been part of the agenda. So we just spent a lot of time just really, I would say the first couple of years, it took a lot of time to just be able to really get them to understand the value in marketing. We're a community foundation, so fundraising is a big part of what we do. And so the more that we can raise awareness, the more that people know about us, and then they know our story, and then it can have that compelling narrative. But we can't reach all of those people just by having boots on the ground. And so by being able to build that up to say, hey, if we increase this, we can reach more people through social media and other areas that we're not able to get to as easily, right? We can reach it's hard, right? Marketing, you guys all know this. It's hard to reach everybody you need to reach and figuring out the best way to reach them. And so I think something we really had to overcome was what's the best way to reach everybody, because a lot of the board at the time felt that print was the best way. And while that does work for a percentage of our population, we wanted to be able to expand and then start attracting new people that maybe also wanted to see it on their phone, like me, or write an email. And so we just slowly started showing. And then a big thing that really helped them was just for us to be able to use best practices. I'm a huge best practices copier. And so, hey, they're doing this and they said that this worked. And so here's why we think we should do this here. and just really focusing in on educating them and earning their trust. And that really built a really strong base to be able to overcome other things that have come up. So now I feel like they understand it. And that's been really helpful. So I would just say the more that you can continue to genuinely educate them, not get frustrated, just realize that they may not know or they may not understand an aspect of it, especially with AI and different things coming up. It's always good just to continue to educate them as you can so that they feel like they can trust you. You build up that expertise knowledge. Yeah, I mean, and that's the approach we've taken, and it's worked to overcome these challenges.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing, Julie. And on the donor concerns one, that was one that I feel like you had a solution there where you really were kind of honoring those donors that wanted their funds to a specific place, but then also encourage that those general use funds, and that was working as well for you all.
Yeah, so that's a really big part in the community foundation world is donor stewardship, right? And so people give us money, and our job is to make sure that the money goes where it's supposed to go. And so that's always a really big, that's a big driver in everything that we do. And so it's important to make sure that we are clearly conveying that in our marketing materials and in our content and in news stories and magazine articles. And we just say it as much as we can, that our job is to make sure that we steward your funds well, so that then we're held to that, and then there's accountability, but then also they know that we are transparent and they can trust us. And so that's helped. That's also helped in the marketing. People have come to us because they liked that we said that we do that, right?
Yeah.
Versus just take the money. So I think it's just being very transparent and clear up front with all marketing. And then it naturally, organically just helps then once they're supporting the organization.
Awesome. So feel free for all of you that are in this session to drop in, like, if one of these really resonates with you. We'd love to know. We don't have an official poll set up, but we decided that we would just use the chat functionality. So if one of these specific challenges resonates with you or you're having, feel free to drop that into chat, because we always like to kind of get a pulse on where everybody's at as well there. I want to say you're not alone in the sense that less than 30% of nonprofit boards prioritize marketing and communications, despite 70% recognizing its importance for brand awareness. And so this is a clear disconnect that is common. And so I do feel like it can be frustrating, whether you're in that fundraising seat or in that marketing seat, to say, "Ooh, I feel like you're prioritizing it, but you're saying it's important, but then is it getting prioritized?" Not to be a total doomsday person here when we talk about, okay, what happens if we don't solve this marketing buy-in challenge, right? We'll paint a little bit of a picture here, but I think these are all things that you probably have felt. But first off, this is from the Chronicle of Philanthropy of Americans volunteering less, right? This is a quick news article. But ultimately this idea of, if we don't have marketing buy-in, we could have difficulty scaling programs, right? The lack of volunteers, services going underutilized, and just general low awareness. The second one, this one hits home for me. I've worked in startups and tech, and sometimes just the turnover and burnout that can happen in really fast-paced cultures, that can be really hard for marketing teams and fundraising teams as well. And then I always have felt like, when that happens, it just kind of sets back things 3 or 6 months, right? And so, making sure that the teams are resourced appropriately and they're not always scraping by, right? Because at some point you can go 100 miles per hour for a few months, but you can't do that forever necessarily. And then just that missed opportunity, right? The missed opportunities for collaboration, community engagement, and fundraising that occur if we aren't kind of doing the things that need to be done from a marketing perspective. Julie, you had mentioned collaboration was one of the big results that you had seen from your marketing. Anything that you'd like to share a little bit more there?
Yeah, I mean, I think collaboration is key to everything, even outside of marketing. And so I think the more that you can just get people to be working together overall, it's going to be better in everything. I was just reading Aaron's comment about, seeing marketing as an expense, is an error on our part. I agree with that. I think it's really important for us to be able, though, to understand that to board members, when they're looking, I don't know how many of you here serve on a board. I serve on one other board. And so I try to remind myself of what that feels like when you are at a board meeting and you're reviewing a budget, that it's not your everyday job, right? It's something that you see maybe a couple times every month. And so just being able to put yourself in their shoes and, okay, here's all the line items and here's everything that we need to do, right? I can see where on their end, marketing might be like, oh, well, if we have to cut something, but really it takes time and you have to be patient and persistent. But if you can just continue to build up the value, and hey, if we can build more collaborations, right? The more that we can collaborate with other nonprofits, with other local businesses, that happens through marketing, right? And then we can tell the story, and then we can market the story that happens with collaboration. Then the board members will continue just to see all of that. They'll start hearing it. They'll start understanding all of the words that you're saying that they don't understand at the beginning. But then it builds up the value so that eventually when they're looking at the budget, that's what they see. That's what my board sees now when we talk about marketing. They don't just see it as like a number. Oh, we don't really need this. They see like they know the value that comes from that marketing budget line item. And so that's the goal, right? But I mean, that's taken us a lot of time to get to that point. And so I think just always reminding yourself that like they're only here once or twice a week or once or twice a month. My board once, right? And then just trying to help them get into their mind of how you can build up the marketing value so that it's more than just an expense, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's dig into that. Let's talk about that crafting a clear pitch and what that might look like as well. But really good insights there, and agree with kind of it is a long game, building that trust, and always like repositioning in the sense of like they're not in the weeds every day as the board. I think that's super important as well. One thing I think is back to that expense versus investment, but always really working to position marketing as mission critical, right? It's not a nice to have. Like, wouldn't it be great? Yeah, that's not really how we want to start the ask or start the pitch. Wouldn't it be great? I think this is, leading with the data over here. This is an example kind of fake scenario where I'm showing, this marketing effort of media spend and outreach events is really driving a direct correlations to new volunteer signups and new donors. So that data alone, to me, is really compelling, right? If I'm a board member or if I'm, a CEO, those sorts of things, I'm like, great, like things are working, super compelling. But I think also remembering, back to that idea, they're not seeing this every day, how to make sure that that data gets communicated down to that impact level. So in this example, we, would take that one step further to say, look at this correlation. This is so great. And just as a reminder, the average new donor gives $1,500 in the first year. New donors have in 2024 accounted for 20% of total funds. So, right, like that was really big for our organization. These are fake numbers, a fake scenario here, but you get the idea, right? Like, let's take that to the next step versus just landing on the data is compelling, but let's talk about how that impacts the ultimate organization as well. The same thread you can do, something with volunteers and how we need more volunteers than ever. We need 1,000 by the end of the year in this situation. So, and that really supports the strategic plan, right? So tying it back to things that the board may be more familiar with and may be more kind of tangible in regards to what matters. When we talk about communicating ROI, I'm a big fan of communicating ROI as simply as possible. And so I stole some numbers. Julie had a super successful event a while ago. And so these are some rough numbers from her event of spending around $5,000, getting a $500,000 return on that. Wouldn't it be nice, right? Like we all would love these types of numbers. When you do kind of this classic ROI calculation, you have a 9,900% ROI. I'm one of those people that once the number gets over basically 100%, I start to tune out, right? And 9,900%, I'm not sure how I can make sense of that. So also thinking about when we're talking to our board and, folks within the organization, even, using terms and bringing that down to a level of, hey, for every dollar we spent, we made $99 in donations. How amazing is that, right? And so I think that making sure that we're yes, leading with metrics, but also not getting lost in them and trying to make them something that you could, say over a cup of coffee versus always needing a spreadsheet and always needing a lot of, analysis to understand. In these ROI calculations, one thing that I'm a stickler for, and I'm reminded honestly by my boss in my current role today is that time is also something, right? So, if I'm like, oh, this won't be a very expensive thing, it's like, oh, but how much time is it going to take the team to do, right? Mm-hmm. And so making sure that you account for that staff time and resources when you put that together, rough measurements are better than nothing, right? But if you know about coming up to the event, my team's spending about 50% of their time on an event, that starts to be meaningful in the dollar calculation. The full picture, understand and show long-term ROI. So that value per format is really helpful for that. An example that we do here at Boardable, to kind of just bridge the gap between tech and nonprofit here, that we do is we have a value per demo, right? And so when we're doing paid search on Google, every demo that we get, we kind of put a value on that, and we calculate that based on we do 100 demos, we close X customers, and the average contract is X amount. And so we have a calculation there that we now know that a demo is worth this to our business. And so those are helpful things that you can do as a nonprofit as well. If you can, kind of do some backwards math and get to a point that you can feel confident to be like, hey, you know what? And an average person that is an email subscriber, right? That's a pretty tangible one, right? If I have a new email subscriber, our email list, when we do an ask, we get this much funds and we get this many volunteers. You can start to kind of put a value back to getting those kind of, leading indicators, if you would. And then thinking about lifetime value where it's appropriate. So thinking about not only am I getting this donor today, or if I'm getting this new volunteer, what's going to be the lifetime value there? And then I want to just make a note that not all ROI is going to be fundraising centric. And I really encourage folks to tie back to clear goals of the organization and mission, and even using that specific language in the mission and vision statements when you're talking about your marketing initiatives and messages can be really powerful in my perspective. So again, using Julie as an example here, the Community Foundation of Boone County's mission is to unite people, organizations, and philanthropy to create a thriving community for all. So if I were going to put myself in Julie's shoes, which are big shoes to fill, not qualified to do that. But if I were going to put myself in her shoes, as a measure for how well we are creating a thriving community, like reutilizing that language when you're talking or when you're putting things on slides and that type of thing can be pretty powerful, because it kind of recenters people back to why are we doing this, right? So I am doing this because I'm running to create this thriving community for all. And we are looking to drive event attendance to a community volunteer fair, and we're going to measure the results by the attendance at the event, right? But it just is that kind of, I'm going to say trick, if you will, but tip of realizing that mission language, because again, can resonate with that board a little bit more strongly.
For sure.
Anything you'd add there, Julie? And thanks for letting me use your guys' mission statement here. So.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this. So we just, last year, we did a lot of strategic planning work to launch a new strategic plan this year. And so it's a 2-year strategic plan. And something that I have loved, that I've heard our team, our staff, our board, myself, we all have really been looking at everything through the strategic plan lens, right? And so without getting too focused on the strategic plan topic, I think successful marketing supports the strategic plan. And if you are having conversations with your board or with people and you're struggling getting them to understand the value in marketing, the conversation is, hey, one of our pillars in our strategic plan is to create a thriving community. And so we can promote that thriving community through these marketing initiatives. Or we are launching this event. I see a lot of comments too about, talking with donors and defining donors. And so, hey, if we want to build up more donors, and that's a pillar in our strategic plan, marketing can help us tell that story so that people then understand that's who we are. So I think, using marketing to tie into the mission, vision, strategic plan, everything keeps everything consistent and clean and clear for the users and for the residents and whoever you serve. But I think that on the flip side, that can also be an easy way for you to justify marketing if you need to. That, hey, this was in our plan, or this is in our mission. And so this is how marketing supports that, or we can't do that without marketing type of a thing. That's been successful too for us whenever there's been something that maybe is on that we really know we need to do, and maybe the board needs a little more conversation on it. That's been the way that we've been able to get them to understand that.
Absolutely. Awesome. We're gonna keep rolling through here. I feel like we could dive into that topic even deeper. I do think Julie brings up a really good point. Is like none of this is happening in a vacuum, right? Like the sort of optimal nonprofit. You have good communication with your board. You have organization with your board, and you have a strong strategic plan to support all of that, right? And so all of those things working together, I just feel like is really important. As a piece of that. conversation. Some non-fundraising related metrics that you might consider educating your board on and talking to your board a little bit more about, or in those situations where ultimately it's not a fundraising goal, it's not a financial goal. You are probably all aware of some of these mission impact, people served, your success rate, community engagement, volunteer hours served, and that can even be made financial if that is saving staff time or, things that you would have had to pay for otherwise. Advocacy actions, event participation, and then a brand awareness and growth, showing that web and social traffic, email subscribers, and then earned media mentions. I know, Julie, you mentioned that you guys really are regularly sharing any of those earned media mentions and those types of things with your board. And I feel like, this is brand, looking at all of these metrics, you could have 5 spreadsheets to do this, but I think that deciding, when you're talking to your board, let's not show them everything, right? Like, what are a few metrics we want to share with them? But I do love the idea of just sharing those earned media mentions on a regular basis as well. Anything else there, Julie, on that? That's been helpful. Yeah.
No, I think it kind of depends on the phase that you are in as an organization. If you feel like your board has a good understanding of social media equals marketing, then maybe not spend as much time on that, but pour time into building up other parts of marketing. Amanda made a comment earlier that was like 100% to recruit a marketing professional onto the board to be an internal champion. We have one, and it's amazing. And so that is a huge help. So if you don't have one, that is a really great help, because then you can meet with them and brainstorm with them. And then when things come up, the board member can share it as an idea versus as a staff member. So that's great. But so he has really helped me too, just to put the board goggles on of, hey, like, what would I want to know if I wasn't a staff member and a board member? What would be really powerful pieces for me to be able to not only learn, but then also be able to equip myself so that as a board member, I can become an advocate in the community, and easy numbers that I can share with people, right? Because then they start to, it's like, well, look at you, now you're marketing.
No, totally.
Right. So it's an easy way to teach, for sure.
Absolutely. And then there is this aspect of storytelling. So I mentioned internal selling before, but the idea of storytelling, I feel like telling nonprofit marketers that storytelling matters feels like, of course it does, right? That's like telling a runner that, like, hey, running's good for you, or, like those sorts of things. Of course they know that, right? But this is an example from Habitat, which I always feel like does a great job of kind of putting pictures and faces and telling the story of a family that's going to benefit from their services and their programs. And this is the external facing, but I just think one reminder for everybody is don't forget to bring that same mindset into the boardroom, right? So that storytelling that we all know works really well when it comes to getting donors and getting volunteers, and making sure that you don't kind of lose that when you go into the boardroom and just are like, data, or you're not, giving that bigger context and that bigger story of what the end impact is. Photos and videos can go a long way to board members as well. So just when you're capturing content, maybe at an event, one question that if you're asking somebody at an event, where did you guys hear about coming, out to this like volunteer fair or whatever it might be, right? If you have a lot of people happily saying, oh, I saw it on Facebook, or, oh, I saw the billboard about it, or whatever, investments you've made in marketing, those little clips at a future board meeting can be great, right? This can all be like something shot off your phone. It doesn't have to be fancy, but I just like think of them as an audience, and then leveraging survey data. So if you do post-event surveys, or if you're just surveying donors at some point, that can help emphasize the narratives as well. So consider in those surveys keeping some of those open fields. I know it's hard as like data lovers that you're like, oh, the open fields are really hard to analyze. ChatGPT is super helpful for that, right? So we do some surveys with open fields, and I'm like, hey, give me the top 3 themes from this, and what does this look like, type of thing. And so ChatGPT can be your friend if you have that open field survey data. Make sure to compliance, and, you're not putting any personal information in there. But regardless, I would say leveraging that survey data and pulling out those quotes. So you might have a slide that's just a quote from Joan, who found out about the event and has decided to sign up as a volunteer and has put the Boone County Foundation in her estate plans, right? Like that's compelling, right? To have that quote there. So just a quick tip there on those open text fields as well. Anything that you'd add here, Julie?
I just think this is key. And I think it's so hard, especially now in my CEO role. It is hard. It's natural when you have board meetings just to, well, we have to get this approved, this ratified, we have to go through this. But then you lose why, the reason why we all are in this work that we're in. And again, if they're only in it a couple times every month, that's the time to remind them of why, like, hey, we are glad you're here and here's why you continue to serve. And so something that I've done is I send out, we meet every other month, actually. So we don't even meet each month, but about every other week, I send an email to the board, and I know that most of them don't read it. And I even say that, please read me. This is an important one. I get it, but I always try to include some pictures from things that the staff have been doing just to
Yep.
keep them in the loop. But you can even do that in the board meetings, right? So what we started doing this year is making our agenda align with the strategic plan. And so it shifted the mindset. So it's like, hey, community engagement was a pillar, and here are the things that we've been doing. And then when you talk about, hey, we just had this article, and we just, for the first time ever, guys, this is new, and so you can all celebrate with me. For the first time, we were on the cover of the Boone County Magazine, which was huge. And so we were able to say at our board meeting last week, like, hey, we've received so many messages from people saying, hey, we saw you on the cover of the magazine. And so just anything you can do just to make it like genuine and just remind them of why we're all still doing the work that we're doing in those board meetings is super important. But yet still how it aligns with the strategic plan, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's important.
We've talked a lot about data. Just a few more topics that I wanted to dig into on just like building a data focused board, right? And kind of how to introduce that. One of is a 20% higher likelihood of increased marketing budgets year over year when you're regularly sharing metrics, right? So people like to see those metrics go up and like to understand those metrics. I think, like if you're not measuring it, you're probably not really improving it or not really working towards that. I think that rings true in a lot of aspects of life, right? If you don't measure it, you're not managing it, type of thing. And so this is just kind of a reiteration of that and the importance of doing that metric sided work. And this slide's a little bit text heavy, so I'll go easy on it, but just regularly reporting those marketing metrics. I loved what you said earlier, Julie, about like, you're like, oh, now you're a marketer, Bob, right? Because they're starting to bring up the metrics and they're talking about that. And that feels really good. Keeping that to a pretty small number. If this is kind of new for your board, right? Maybe it's not a spreadsheet, right? Maybe it's just like, we have 5 numbers that we throw up on a slide and that's what we're looking at right now. It could be things around, total funds raised by channel, donor acquisition and retention rates, program outcomes, cost effectiveness of marketing campaigns. So this could be something like cost per engagement or cost per volunteer, lead, or donor. Those are just some ideas. Obviously, like your organizations might look a little bit different. Using those visual dashboards to simplify those complex data. So, that example I had earlier of showing trend lines versus putting a bunch of numbers in a chart, that might be a little bit hard to see trends on. And then encouraging that two-way dialogue about results, challenges, and adjustments. And we have a little bit more content around this, but just this idea of you do want, for the board to feel engaged and to feel like they can ask a question and, actually have an idea that you're going to take back and all of that. So I think it's just important to not be so rigid when we're presenting, like, this is definitely what we're doing. This is that. Or if that is the stage that you're in, being clear about that. Like, we've already made this decision. This is the plan. So just knowing when you want to engage your board and at what level, which we will get to a little bit more. I'd love for you guys to drop in any metrics that your board asks you about often. Like, where are your board members' heads when it comes to, hey, like, how much are we spending to get a donor? Is that the big one, or what's the big one for your organization? And then are there metrics that you might be working to educate your board about, right? Kind of depending on how long they've been in the nonprofit board space or how long they've been exposed to your organization, you might be trying to, tell them these are the metrics that matter to the organization. So I'm kind of curious on both of those to see some of those answers coming through. I saw total revenue and revenue by event makes a lot of sense, on both of those sides. I know on a board that I serve on, we're always looking at sort of the breakdown of our revenue, right? How much is coming from individual donors versus how much is coming from, grants and how much is coming from other sources. So, that kind of split is important in a newer organization to understand. But yeah, that looks like there's a lot of different ones here. So. And then when it comes to engaging your board, there's 4 keys here that I think we've hit on most of these already, but, assigning that marketing champion or subcommittees to drive board engagement, equipping board members with talking points and success metrics or stories rather, to amplify those marketing efforts. And so, that can look like a lot of things. I've seen it, really fun where you're like, hey, if somebody asks you about the Community Foundation of Boone County, what do you say? Like kind of do like a little mini pitch session, right? And so that everybody can kind of hear each other's and maybe you all align on, hey, we want to make sure we communicate these 3 bullet points. That's super fun. And then leveraging the full board by inviting them early for input and later for advocacy. This was really usually that kind of helped me form this key. I feel like for this, I'd love for you to talk to this a little bit more. This idea of, hey, we're going to bring you in when we're in the brainstorm session. And then we're going to kind of be committees and, kind of in this working staff and committee world. And then we're going to bring you in at the end to give you that awareness. And we're going to give you, hey, if you see a typo, let us know, right? It hasn't went to print yet, maybe, but like otherwise it's pretty shipped. Tell me a little bit about your mindset or lessons there.
So, we all know that in the marketing world, everybody has opinions and that can be really hard to manage. Like that can just be hard. Then especially it's a different dynamic, adds a different level when it comes from a board member with feedback on, I think it should be this font, or I think you should say this instead of this. And it can get to be a lot. And so when I started here, we just had, as a staff, we just started having conversations on like, what's the best way? Because it was new to everybody of having a marketing person. And so what we've just kind of leaned into, and honestly, I think the board appreciates that we've just, again, been transparent and clear with like, hey, here's how it is. So we're going to come up with, I don't know, what's an idea. We just finished our annual report. So like, hey, here's the general idea that we're going to do with the annual report for next year. Here's the general outline. We're going to hit on this and this and this. If you have other questions or other things that you think would be cool that we're just not thinking of, please let us know. Right. So it's very open, and then it's okay, great. And we do that. Yeah. So Andrew, we do that with the full board because I think it's important for us to be able to give every board member the opportunity to input. Doesn't mean we're going to do what they say. Not everything, right? But so it's just a short conversation. And then we take it from there and say, okay, thank you, Community Foundation of Boone County, Helen. So then we get that information and then we take it back, myself and our director of communications now. And then we look at that and we say, okay, so like a lot of things usually align. This we're not going to do. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then we just say, hey, thanks for all of your input. We appreciated it because they want to be heard. A lot of times people just want to be heard, right? And if we hear you, we take that, we appreciate your input because we do, because we're in it all the time. We need external perspectives. And so then we start working on it. And so then the dialogue changes in the board meetings of, hey, we're in the thick of the annual report. When it gets ready to that point for you guys to be, reviewing it, we're excited to share it with you. We'll let you know. So like they're not even involved in that. That's where we have our board chair is involved in that part of the process. And then we have, again, that like internal champion that's a board member who is very involved with us with helping that. But then I think the key is then when you present it back, again, it's the way that you lay it out so that it's a clear expectation for them. It's not, hey, here's this flyer. We would love your feedback. Because then you're opening it up to, well, I don't think that I can't really read this. Or I think that's confusing versus, hey, here's the final draft. If you see any typos, if you see something that's incorrect, please let us know. It's a very clear, okay, so they're not asking for my input at this point or what's missing, right? And we've never, the first couple of times I did that, I was a little like, they told me how much they appreciated that because on the other hand, they thought that I needed their input. Yeah. Right. If we didn't say it that way. So they didn't want to not do what they thought I didn't want them to be doing that. So it just goes back to being clear and being transparent. And it's been it's been super successful for us just to be that clear what you need from board members with marketing across the board.
And it really does. I mean, in my day-to-day, like the same thing is true is just, in those early phases of we're going to do this new messaging or new campaign, it's like I'm involving our, CEO, right? But then once we like are in the weeds on it, we're not involving, him on all the copy. And then, the final outcome, obviously he's seen as well. So I think there is some like trust and just making sure there's early alignment. And then at the end, there is that, here's the final, do you want to give it a quick look for typos type of thing, or feel good about this? That feels really, really good and makes a lot of sense. I also think there is something, people are on nonprofit boards for lots of different reasons. And there is something about, them getting sneak peeks at things that sometimes can be like part of the joy for them, right? Like, oh, I got to see that before it was the billboard or before it went out to 10,000 donors or whatever, that type of thing. So I think that feeling bought in and excited about different things can be something that is kind of a happy unintended consequence of that activity, I think, Julie. And then the same thing when we were talking about like key number 2 here of equipping those board members with talking points and, having this marketing champion as well is, when you are doing a new social media campaign or you are asking for, certain actions, whatever that might look like. Let's Day of Giving is an easy one, but there's other things. Giving your board members like really easy, like copy and paste type of content for their social media, for even text messages. That's something that we've been doing now is like, here's a quick text message that you can copy and paste or make your own that you can send to your friends about the upcoming event and they can register on mobile and it's all good type of thing. So I think that, thinking of them as sort of like mini influencers as well can really, I think, get them engaged with marketing and get them excited because hopefully they're getting some early access. They're getting some like insider info on what the big gala might be and, all of those things depending on their level of involvement. So I'm not sure if that resonates with anybody, but I do think that, taking a step back and being like the motivations of the board, some of it may be that sort of, they want to be in the know a little bit in their community or within that organization at least. So
yeah, I agree with that. Also keep in mind that really they're not all going to do it.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah.
Like, even if you get a couple, that's good. So don't like leave this and then go do it and be like, well, they're not all reading my emails. They're not doing all these things that Julie and Jenny said. Even if you get a couple, that's still better than 0. And then you're helping those people with their purpose, right? Of why they served on the board. And so then you're filling their cup. And so that's important.
Yeah.
If you get all of them, let us know because that's great.
Please let us know what you did. And the mini influencers thing, I will just like double down on that a little bit if it's okay. Is I went to the point of like putting together like a quick packet of like here's like for all the different formats. If you're a LinkedIn person, here's your LinkedIn post. If you're this, if you're that. And like just trying to make it so easy. That's just been really helpful because I think if you're just like, hey, go share this on Facebook or go do this on this, like people are just like, oh, but how, so like, again, not to like say ChatGPT is the solution for everything, but when it comes to email scripts and that type of thing, ChatGPT can speed that up for you and your marketing team, to be like, hey, can you give my board email scripts that they could do for this certain capital campaign to their friends and family, right? Like you're going to get a pretty good start and then, you're obviously going to refine it with your brand. So just a couple of things there. I do want to kind of wrap things up. I think hopefully some of you have seen this before. Aaron Hedges, who is somebody that I talked to before this presentation, was like, hey, you have to go watch Dan's TED Talk. And it's just still relevant today, where ultimately this TED Talk talks about nonprofits should be empowered to market themselves like businesses to maximize their impact, right? And so the few key takeaways from the TED Talk, if you haven't seen it, is about marketing driving impact, not just overhead, brand building and storytelling and how they can truly attract more funding, and then how to position donors focusing on results and not expenses, right? And you could maybe replace donors with board here too sometimes as well. The reason I'm going to share this is because I think that if you are at step 1, it's about a 20-minute TED Talk, but there's like a section that you could probably, get to. It's not a bad idea to, hey, we're going to spend 5 minutes at the beginning of the board meeting. This is something that I've been inspired by, and I wanted to share with you and the board, right? So I do think sometimes bringing in a new voice, and if that is in the format of a TED Talk and it works for you and your board, I think that's an option that I would consider, if I was in some of your shoes, to be like, hey, we've kind of had some friction, or maybe there's not really been friction, but maybe just haven't been moving as aggressively towards marketing as you would want. Let's like center on the why. And so this TED Talk is from 2013, but is just still super, super relevant today. And I have no skin in the game for you to go watch the TED Talk, but I do think that a lot of the themes carry over, and again, could be that new voice in the room, to get your board excited and motivated about investing more in marketing. So I really hope that everybody leaves here today inspired, to go make the ask, has a few new ideas and a few new tools, when you go to your board and are really wanting that approval as well. Resources and thank yous. I mean, first off, Julie, thank you so much for being a part of this, for being a thought partner, and for being a customer boardable, all of the things. Christy Howard Schultz also gave me a lot of good insights, and she has a ton of really great content on her website as well. Some quick calculators and some different tools there. So I want to give her a shout out there. And then Erin, who I mentioned earlier, at hellohedges.com, another great nonprofit consultant, who just has been very generous with sharing some of her intel as well. So just wanted to give all of these women great shout outs here. Next steps, learn more about Boardable. Join us in the Boardable booth right now. My colleague, Laura Boland, is actually going to be over there giving a quick demo. I'm giving you a quick overview of Boardable if you want to see that. If you're headed to another session, need to take a lunch break, you can request a demo through us. And if you are qualified to do that demo, you can get an $100 Amazon gift card as part of the Boost Pack offer. We always offer a free trial. You can start a free trial. And then also check your inboxes over there, the next days and those times we'll get in touch with you. But we do have a great nonprofit storytelling ebook. And I know that we had talked about storytelling here and just wanted to share that as well. But Julie, anything else that you'd want to leave everybody with today?
I would just say thank you for everything that you guys do. We all are in the thick of it and always doing a lot of different things. And so just know that Jenny and I appreciate everything you guys are doing to tell the stories, to be able to better the communities that you each live in. And thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, this was super fun. Thanks again, Julie, and really enjoyed the whole experience with the NMS team as well. So thanks, guys.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jenny and Julia. It was an incredible session. So I think it was Jenny that said, go to the lounge. She'll be there with her colleagues. So you'll get some more information out of that. But